Do you ever feel like you and your spouse are just roommates sharing a home and kids? Well, it is not just you. Today, we're exploring how to move from feeling like co managers of a household back to being romantic partners and best friends. You'll learn ways to reignite that spark and deepen your connection, even in the midst of a busy family life. Hey, parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's rock and talk. Welcome back, my friends, to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're exploring a topic that many of us experience but rarely discuss, and that's feeling like roommates with your spouse instead of romantic partners. I want to start with a quote from Mignon McLaughlin that says, "A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person." So this could not be more true, especially for parents when we are navigating all the demands of family life. It feels like you are trying to fall in love with that same person as you both change so much. So, what does it mean to be in that roommate phase? It's when you and your spouse feel more like co managers of that household instead of romantic partners. And I'll share some common signs in just a second. But I want to talk about a few clients that I've had. I feel like this comes up with my couples quite a bit, where they come in and just say, I don't even know if I really like them anymore. Like, it's just not very fun. And then we start that next phase where we start to investigate what's going on, what it looks like. And as I ask more questions, I find out like they're not really being intimate very much. Like, very rarely. They have a lot of built up ammunition for all of the things that they are upset with. And often it's rightfully so. But as we investigate, we recognize, okay, there's a dance going on here and it's happening on both sides. And very rarely do I see it be entirely one person. But both people have some responsibility for that. So it's working through that. This has come up a lot with clients. And every time that comes up a lot with clients, I'm like, okay, maybe this is something that we can address in a podcast episode that can help other listeners. So, what are some of those common signs of feeling more like co-managers or roommates? Your conversations might be limited to things like, did you pick up some milk? Or who's taking Macy to practice? Or things like that. Maybe it's spending time together but feeling disconnected, like just watching TV in silence or scrolling through your phone side by side, but not really interacting. Maybe it's feeling more excitement spending time with friends than with your spouse, or seeing your partner as another responsibility rather than a romantic partner. I see this a lot with my clients. Like the way they even talk about it in session, they talk about their spouse like they are another kid, and often even less than that, like less reliable because it's an adult that has more opinions and doesn't want to be controlled, whereas kids might be more okay with being told what to do. Well, it's very hard to coerce your partner. And so it's even more frustrating than dealing with a kid oftentimes when I'm working with my clients. Okay, another thing, it could be realizing that you can't remember the last time you had a deep, meaningful conversation with your spouse. or feeling like you know each other so well that there isn't much left to discover. So, do any of those things resonate with you? If so, this episode is going to help you because we've all been there. We go in and out of this quite a bit, and it's normal. It's a normal part of the human experience and a normal part of marriage. So, what do we do about it? Well, before we go into that, I want to share another story here about a client. I'm just going to call her Sarah. And she realized she was in this phase after this really mundane week that she had. And she looked at her husband one night and thought, when was the last time we really talked about something other than kids or the house or responsibilities? And it haunted her a little bit, just feeling like, man, is this all there is? And then there was another client, I'll just call him Mark, and he found himself faking enthusiasm when his wife suggested a date night, realizing that he'd rather spend time with his friends or even alone. And this happens to many of us. It's not exclusive to, say, Sarah or Mark. Like, we start to feel that way, and then we feel guilty for feeling that way, and we try to shove it down. So between parenting or work or those daily routines, our relationships often take a back seat, and we become emotionally complacent and really neglect that romance and that intimacy that brought us together in the first place. So again, how do we move from roommates to romantic partners that really enjoy each other? Well, there are some simple steps that work with my clients that can work for you too. The first thing you can do is prioritize time together. So that is scheduling those weekly date nights or moments of connection, even if it's at home. It doesn't have to be elaborate. One couple that I worked with started with a no phone dinner rule, which quickly became important in their family life because that's really when they finally talked a little bit more. Another couple I worked with began with a 15-minute date every morning. These ones were coffee drinkers, so they had this morning ritual where before they woke their kids up, they just connected a little bit and talked about what they were looking forward to and talked about their dreams and different things besides just the mundane. And they got back in that habit of that connected time together. Another thing you can do is communicate openly and honestly. So share your feelings without blaming them and use those I statements. I go back to this all the time because this is a key thing that is often missing when I work with my couples, and it's such a simple thing. One of my clients told me that asking intentional questions like, what's something you're excited about lately? Or what's been challenging for you this week? Really helped them reconnect with their spouse on a deeper level instead of just, what'd you do today? Oh, great. And you're not even really listening to each other. There's this game that you can also try called the High-Low Buffalo. And you can do this at dinner with your kids. It's very simple. I really love this. It's just a simple way to reconnect with one another and with your children. And this is how it works. So each person shares their high point of every day, their low point of every day, and something unexpected, which is the buffalo. So high-low buffalo. It's just a very simple way to reconnect. The third thing you can do is inject some novelty into your relationship. This might be trying a new activity together. Maybe that's a dance class or hiking, learning a new language. Like my husband and I want to start ballroom dancing again. We have done that before, but there hasn't been a class recently, and we just heard about one. We're like, oh, we should get back into that. It could be taking a cooking class together, or I know my husband and I with another couple, we did a glass blowing class. And I have another client that just talked to me about how she signed her and her husband up for an art class, like a painting class. And they did that, I think it was once a week for a couple months, and that she really enjoyed that. Now, I do want to encourage you to get out of that habit of just doing something where you zone out on the date, like dinner and a movie where you barely talk to each other, like you're just scrolling on your phone, you're watching a screen, you're not really interacting. If you're not connecting on a date, you're missing the point. It's still a helpful habit to keep, but not the best. So good, better, best, we would call that good, but we're going for better or best here. Another thing you can do is rebuild that physical intimacy. You can start small with affectionate gestures like holding hands or hugging longer, giving each other a massage. It doesn't have to be this big, heavy thing. I was actually just talking about this with a client this morning. And she talked about how it feels so difficult because she's so resentful. And we explored that a little bit. And I mentioned to her that often when there is more of a willingness to be intimate with your spouse, it is more motivating for the other person to try more because there is deeper connection that naturally comes from intimacy. Now, I'm not saying to self betray and to not pay attention to those resentments, but this give and take, recognizing that it could be something that could help deepen that relationship and that willingness to change. And I know a lot of people can use intimacy to manipulate, and we don't want that either way, either withholding or too much or any of those things, like expecting something in return. But that's a whole nother episode that I could go to. Patricia Love said this: the deepest moments of intimacy occur when you're not talking. So you can show that connection and that love in so many ways without words. One couple I was working with shared how they started a 6-second kissing rule, making sure that their hellos and goodbyes, or those departures that the Gottmans talk about, that they are more meaningful. So that it really increased connection for them. Another thing you can do is express gratitude and admiration. For a client that I'm working with right now, she is really struggling to see the good in her spouse. So instead of just writing a line of day of gratitude just for life in general, she started writing it about her spouse. She loved the results of that. To now, she is using technology to help. So she does a video message, so Marco Polo or something like that. And each day she just does a quick, hey, thank you so much for doing this. And it's not just performance based, but it's also things like, it was so fun to see you with the girls, how you connected with them and how you're so sweet and gentle with them. Things like that, not just thanks for taking out the trash, but all of these different things to remind your spouse that you care and you do love them and you do see the good. A simple thing that you can do with this is try the I appreciate you game, where you take turns sharing 3 things you appreciate about each other before bed. All right, just 2 other things that you can do, 2 other tips. You can focus on your friendship. So treat your spouse as your best friend and just laugh together, support each other's dreams, and share those little joys instead of going right to reactivity or into advice giving. Just think of them as that best friend again, instead of somebody that's resentful or rolling their eyes thinking about what they're going to do or something like that. There is a couple that I worked with a while ago that started a 2-person book club where they started to read and discuss a book each month just to reconnect and rekindle that relationship. Another couple took up geocaching as a way to have these like little adventures throughout the week, just a simple thing they can do that's all around them. And that's actually fun. I've done that with my family as well, and they're everywhere. There's an app for it. I forget what it's called. I think it's just called geocaching. So maybe try that. And the last thing that you can do is create new rituals. You can start these small, meaningful routines that are just for the 2 of you. Maybe that's Sundays on Sunday, like make ice cream sundaes together after the kids go to bed. Or maybe it's starting a journal together and leaving little thoughts and messages or little love notes for each other in that throughout the week, just randomly. My friends, I want you to remember that it is so normal to go through these phases in your relationship when you feel more like a roommate, especially when you're in the thick of busy parenting. The key is to recognize that it takes attention to reconnect. It takes focus. And sometimes we put that so much into everything else that our relationship is the first one to show those negative consequences of not nurturing that relationship for so long. Dr. John Gottman says this: every positive thing you do in your relationship is foreplay. I love that. It's just a very simple way. Like, hey, these are bids that you're putting into your relationship that builds intimacy. And it's completely true. H. Jackson Brown Jr. said this: love is when the other person's happiness is more important than your own. Are we starting to act as if our needs matter more than our spouse's? Are we just operating so much on resentment rather than taking a step back to evaluate our side of the street? Sometimes in the midst of parenting and life stresses, we forget to prioritize the other person's happiness and our own. So just to recap today, Recognize when you're in that roommate phase and that it is normal, but it is reversible in very simple ways. Prioritize that intentional time together and that open communication, and reignite that romance through those small gestures, that gratitude, those shared experiences. And remember that friendship really is the foundation of a strong romantic relationship. So I give you a challenge this week, my friends, to try one of these tips that I gave today. You will be surprised at how these small changes can make such a big difference in your relationship. So start small. Maybe leave a love note in a lunchbox if your spouse has a lunchbox, or take a walk after dinner, whatever that might be. Put away those phones during dinner, any of those suggestions that I gave today. Anne Lindbergh said this: when you love someone, you do not love them all the time in exactly the same way, from moment to moment. It is an impossibility. It is even a lie to pretend to. And yet, this is exactly what most of us demand. We have so little faith in the ebb and flow of life, of love, of relationships. We leap at the flow of the tide and resist in terror its ebb. We are afraid it will never return. My friends, it will return, but it takes attention. It takes focus. It takes nurturing and putting in those bids in ways that we do for our children or our friends. It's the same with a relationship, but even more important because of what it does for all of our other relationships and for our mental health and wellness. I hope these tips help you today. If you think they would help a friend or someone else you know, please share this episode. It will take you 30 seconds and can really change the trajectory of their life and their relationships. And thank you for all the support that you give us, whether that's leaving us a review or sharing episodes or posting about anything on social media. It very much helps us reach more people and help others grow in that fulfillment. Until next time, my friends, remember that your marriage, like your health, needs nurturing to thrive. It's okay to have ebb and flows. What matters is that you keep showing up and you keep trying and you keep choosing each other. Take care, my friends. I'll see you back here on Mondays and Thursdays. Hey, friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.